Hi, I'm Ativ. I don't want to do too much of an intro because I do an intro already later, but I just want to say welcome to Mind Sports Harmony, the podcast where high school athletes and aspiring psychologists and trained psychologists come together to explore the emotional side of sports. I'm Ativ Mathur, a student at Liquid Meridian High School, and today we dive into the story of a young soccer player who faced a sudden, painful pause, and how he worked his way through it mentally and emotionally. With us here, we have Caleb, who has been playing soccer for over a decade, and I, Ativ, who brings a unique student perspective on mental health. Let's jump in. Hi, I'm Ativ. I've always been fascinated by the mental health side of youth sports. As someone studying psychology and fencing for over 5 years, I believe that every athlete's story has a lesson. And healing does not just mean physical recovery.
What's up, y'all? My name is Caleb. I started playing soccer when I was really little. And for me, soccer's taught me a bunch of different lessons throughout my life. But in 10th grade, which is what I want to talk about today, everything changed for me when I lost soccer because I broke my ankle during a summer training program.
Let's rewind a bit. Now, as you guys might not know, Caleb is my best friend, so I've talked to him before about it. But you said that soccer helped you come out of your shell. What did it really mean to you growing up?
Yeah, so when I was little, I used to be super shy and I struggled with a lot of anxiety. Like I remember some days before school, I'd be really nervous about coming into school and I would always want to stay with my parents. But not only soccer, but just discovering sports on a broader spectrum. I was able to kind of get out of my shell a little bit more, meet new people, develop social skills, social emotional learning skills, all that stuff. So yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, sports can be one of the few places where shy teens can feel confident. Like, it gives you structure, a sense of belonging, and like a role to play. When it's taken away, like it's not just about missing practices. It can feel like a part of your identity has been on pause. But like, let's talk a bit more about the injury. How did your breaking your leg affect you, breaking your ankle? Not just physically, but like emotionally as well.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was kind of in shock. Like it wasn't until I broke my ankle in July and I was so convinced that it was just a sprain. I didn't even get an MRI until August. So for or not in August until September. So for 2 months I was playing and running on my broken ankle and just thinking it was a sprain. But after I got my MRI, it really shocked me. I remember crying in the hospital waiting area with my mom, my dad, and just knowing that for the foreseeable future I wouldn't be able to play soccer or even walk. And for me, the hardest part was watching my teammates get better while I was stuck in bed. And the same anxiety I've had my whole life started really coming back. And just felt like my whole entire world is falling apart. So yeah, it was a really tough time in my life.
Sounds incredibly tough, but I'm glad you're able to talk about it. Like what you're describing, the racing thoughts, falling behind, staying confident, or staying confined to a space, especially your bed, like they're all completely normal reactions to this trauma or like this disruption within your life. And like one thing that helps is labeling these thoughts when they show up. Like it's a fear talking. It's not fact. Or like my brain is trying to protect myself. But like you can't overdo it sometimes for sure. Although it seems like you did it pretty well. Did you try any coping strategies on your own? Anything that helped ground you during those first few months?
Yeah, like kind of what you're saying. I think that a lot of our anxiety and a lot of our sadness is correlated with our brains and how our brains aren't necessarily suited best for the environment we're in currently. Like one thing I learned during my injury, and I've talked to you about actually in the past, just that our brains are meant to purely survive and reproduce. And these new emotions we have now, like coping with difficult situations or, enjoying yourself or gratitude, aren't necessarily lessons that would have benefited you back when our brains were developing. So for example, one thing I learned is that when you feel anxious, when you feel sad, that's very much so linked with fear of death, or you see a caveman, you think you're going to die. So I think it's just that ideology and realizing that all the emotions I have aren't necessarily correlated with the world around me, and kind of trying to program my mind to kind of go beyond my these premature reactions.
So like would you like journal or meditate or something like that?
One thing that worked for me really well is one thing my mom told me is that every single emotion can't last for more than 90 seconds. So that ideology is just if an emotion enters through my mind, the only way it can stay in my body for more than 90 seconds is if I feed the emotion with thoughts or with negative ideas. So whenever I feel like sad or angry, I would always just take deep breaths and count to 90 and wait for that feeling to surpass.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, if the audience can do that, I would suggest definitely doing that. But like,
It won't.
that's huge. I mean, I'm really glad that you were able to find that. And like, that's a really interesting fact I did not know. Like, if the audience wants to try that, they can. They could also try guided visualization. Like, you mentally rehearse being back on the field, feeling strong and confident again. Like, the brain doesn't fully distinguish imagination from reality. So, like, it can build emotional strength and even aid recovery for sure. Another question I have: did you ever work with a real therapist or a sports counselor?
Yeah, I was speaking to a sports therapist for a while during my injury and when I started coming back. So yeah, I did.
That's huge. I mean, there's a pretty stigmatizing culture right now around therapy, although it is getting better. Like, it's not just for crisis, it's also for clarity. But do you want to share a bit about how therapy helped you?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like for me the most important thing was just talking to like a trained professional, you know. I'm grateful enough to have a network of close friends and family that I can talk to about my feelings and whatnot. But I feel like not only is it somewhat a burden on them, you know, to hear everything going on, but it's also sometimes they can't give me the most professional or the best feedback possible because they just, in some ways, they just know as much as I do. But you know, talking to a sports psychologist and just learning more about the situation really helped me a lot. So yeah.
That's great to hear. I mean, mental health is not just a comparison game, just like you'd go to a physio for muscle strain. Like going to a therapist for emotional pain is strength, not weakness, honestly. And I think that you exemplify that. Um, when you finally returned to soccer after how many months? When you finally returned to soccer after how many months was it?
It was about six, seven, about I'd say.
For sure. How did it feel? Like, were you nervous, scared, happy?
I mean, no, it felt amazing. I mean, being off, like not doing what I love for like 7 months and coming back to, you know, to this form, it felt great,
Yeah.
but only felt great for like a couple of days, to be honest.
What happened after those couple of days?
Well, I mean, I think in my head, I told myself that during my injury that when I was finally back on the field again, when I was finally playing soccer again, I would finally feel whole. I would finally feel like myself again. And the thing is, when you put all your happiness or all your eggs into one basket to give you this sense of happiness or the sense of contentment you didn't have before, you know, no matter what it is, when you finally reach it, you're going to realize it's not enough.
When you finally returned to soccer after how many months was it?
About 9 months.
How did it feel? Like, were you nervous, scared, excited, happy?
I mean, no, I mean, like in the days leading up to it, and for the first couple of days coming back, it was great. It was amazing.
I see. Like, after the first couple of days, though, how was it?
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that before my injury, I put all my hope and all my happiness into finally getting back playing soccer. You know, I thought that I would finally feel whole again. I'd finally feel like myself when I was back on the field. And when that sense of happiness and satisfaction didn't come overnight, you know, everything I thought I knew about myself instantly changed.
Like, how so? What else? What changed?
Like I just feel like, you know, for me, I started questioning, you know, if I really love soccer and how happy I really was with it because I think my biggest coping mechanism during my injury was telling myself that the reason why I was so dissatisfied with my life is because, you know, there was this huge obstacle that I had to overcome. But I think the thing is, once you overcome the obstacle and you end up at a better place, if that quote unquote better place isn't everything you expected it to be, then you know you won't find yourself satisfied because you realize that there's more to do, you know.
And how long did it take for you to realize that, like, it wasn't all that you made it up to be? Was it, like, within the first week, within the first day? Or, like, because I would assume your brain didn't want to accept the fact that it wasn't what you thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, there's this quote that I really, really abide by. It goes, there was this fish and he was swimming in an ocean and he was constantly looking for the ocean. And he went up to another fish, he swam to the other fish. He said, "Hey, I'm looking for this thing called the ocean. Do you know where it is?" And this other fish said, "Well, you know, you're already here. You're already in the ocean." And the first fish started laughing at the second fish and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. This is just water. What I'm looking for is the ocean." And I feel like for me, a lot of times, you know, maybe I had a lot of happiness in front of me, but I just kept looking for this grand, you know, amazing thing where everything would be okay. And for me, that grand, amazing thing was playing soccer again and being able to walk again and everything that connected me to soccer. But I think what I really realized is that, you know, once I was there, you know, my life was for the most part still the same. You know, I still had to go to school and all that. And, you know,
Would you say, like, it changed your perspective, not just on sports, like on life overall? Because I remember, like, after you came back from your interview, you told me how grateful you were just like such simple things such as walking. And like I would imagine that would probably change your mindset towards life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I say this a lot, but if I could redo time and if I could press a button and never gotten injured in the first place, I honestly don't think I would have pressed that button because me getting injured taught me so many different things about myself and about the world around me. And I believe that a lesson learned should be a lesson shared. And one of the best lessons I learned is that you can't wait for a happy future to happen where you'll finally be happy. You can't wait for happiness to come find you. Over the summer, I actually interviewed this doorman who worked at a hotel, and he was telling me that most of his weeks were terrible, but he lived for his 2 weeks of vacation when he would go to a really nice vacation when he'd finally be happy. And at the time, I didn't really understand it, but now I understand like what a terrible way to live your life. You're just waiting for these days where you can be happy, and whether it be the weekend or job security or the next good grade or a college acceptance letter. I think that a lot of us are waiting for something, awaiting for a future where we'll finally be happy. What I realized is in doing so, you'll completely miss out on all the little joy and gifts around you that surround you today.
Wow. So it taught you to be grateful within the little things and just take what you have right now rather than trying to always chase something.
Yes, sir.
It's nice. That's nice. Thank you so much for being here today, Caleb, being vulnerable and teaching us about your experiences. I myself took away a lot of things, and I hope the audience did, especially like within happiness. And like to every student athlete listening, you're allowed to rest, you're allowed to feel, and you're definitely allowed to ask for support. And like we learned that healing is more than bones and muscles. It's about mindset and also the learning process of what it is when you're injured. So we'll see you next time on Mind Harmony Sports, where we tackle pressure, performance, and the power of presence. Until then, take care of your game and your mind.
That's exactly why conversations like this matter. Athletes aren't just physical performers, they're emotional beings. If you ever feel overwhelmed again, even something as small as weekly check ins with yourself or a trusted peer can be powerful. Or even asking, what do I need today? A small question with big clarity.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself.
No, you couldn't.
Bye.
No, you couldn't have.
No, I couldn't. Bye.
No, we couldn't have. This fucking guy.
You want to say bye to the audience?
This fucking guy.
Say bye to the audience?
All right. All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Me and Ateev will see you next time on our podcast.